Hello. How are we all doing? Somebody let me know if I'm a little bit too loud on this. I don't really have anybody else to bounce this off of. This is the new live episode of the You Me and BTC podcast. I normally do this with Daniel Brown and Zach Vole. They have forsaken me again this week. So you guys get me. I know that's a very big pleasure for most of you, and I assume most of you are now quitting every single thing that you were going to be doing with this in the background so you can give the full attention. That is what I deserve. Uh, at very least, I say that's what I deserve. I decide your my own value. I don't need other people's validation. I just need mine. But I'm Tim Baker. This is going to be a solo episode with just me. If you listen to my other show, Tim's Two Cents, it's probably going to be something similar, except this time I'll actually try to come up with actual facts and not just rant about stuff the whole time. But thank you for joining us. This is episode 260. It's not really a milestone necessarily, but it's a round number. It looks bigger than 220, I guess. That was stupid. So that's what a lot of this is going to be: is attempts at like half attempts at jokes. I don't really feel like going all in because then I look like an idiot. So then what I do is go like half in, so I just look like even bigger of an idiot. But you'll grow to love it. Most people normally do. This week we're going to be talking about, well, I'll probably be going all over the place. Mostly, the biggest news I've heard recently is there was another exchange hack, so I'm going to talk about that for a little bit, and then also Daniel has been sending me tweets that he thinks are particularly witty or something. I'm not exactly sure. You never really know with Daniel whenever he sends you a link in like a chat thing, because it could be any for any number of reasons as to whether this is. He doesn't normally give like a qualification for. He just sends it, and it could be either be something he thinks is funny because it's stupid, something he thinks is legitimately funny, or something that he thinks is just, oh, I should say this to people. So definitely wait around for that. I'll get to that very quickly, just so you guys don't have to, you don't have to worry. You'll have it immediately, and you can get your best information there. But before I do that, I'll throw out my Twitter. I need people to send me books. I need to start reading stuff. I need history books. Like, I used to read history a lot when I was younger, like especially, I don't know, like 14 to 17. Instead of like going out and socializing like you're supposed to at those years, I was just like, nope, I'm just going to read more history books. I'm going to find out how we fucked things up in the past. And then all that was like my favorite thing to think. I never, to my knowledge, I don't remember ever saying it to somebody, but I love that those who forget history are doomed to repeat it or something, which, yeah, and then the people who do know history just do it again too, because it's kind of hard, because if you're the only person who knows history, you're not convincing anybody. You just go, this didn't really work out the last time, and then people are like, shut up, just be quiet, support the troops, support your whatever group you're in, just because. So just shut up, quit having any kind of autonomy, and just let us do our thing. But yeah, I need books. Get me on Twitter for that at Baker's Dozen 93. Give me some new history books. Give me some weird books too. I guess I've been going on a little bit of a Chuck Palahniuk, however you say his name, after I heard him on Rogan. I've also, actually, I didn't. I was about to say I went on a Rogan kick, because that was another thing I used to just like absorb way too much of, because I do a outside job, so I can pretty much just be listening to podcasts all day. So I could theoretically like keep up with his output, which is impressive. But I haven't. I only listened to the recent episode with Chuck Palahniuk. I think came out about a month ago. And since then, I've kind of been going back and forth about maybe buying some more books online. I've read Fight Club, and then he has like a short story compilation that I've gone through a couple times, and I don't necessarily need more of that, but the idea of getting books like that, I'm trying to look for books that aren't just like genre fiction, or like very closely, whether it's fantasy, horror, sci-fi, something with a little bit like experimentation in the writing, something with a little bit more, not depth. That sounds a little bit douchey, but I've gone over that before. I don't need these headphones. I don't know why I'm wearing them. But something with a little bit more style to it, a little bit more like an appreciation for what's being written outside of just, okay, this conveys a story, but like, okay, this actually is constructed in a unique and kind of interesting way. But I'm looking for books like that. I'm also always looking for you guys to throw money at me. I would much prefer to just do more of this stuff than to actually go out and work. And I mean, I think I my politics have kind of like changed around just because I don't really consider most of them to be that serious, because it seems like everybody else kind of switches them around as need be. I'm going full socialist now, except I want to be the guy. I want to be the patron artist after the revolution happens. I'm not laying brick. I'm not cutting era. I'm not cutting all the comrades' grass. I want I want to just be state funded, just send out drivel, because I could do that very, very consistently. I'm not good at writing, but I can do it consistently. And if I was just had money thrown at me, I'm sure it would go well. I'm sure I would produce amazing content. So either you can donate to me, or you can help facilitate the glorious socialist revolution that I need to just have people pay me for art that they don't want. I would love that. Please do that. Please just donate to the show in general, especially whenever I do an episode pretty much by myself. If or not, I mean, it's not by myself. It is by myself. Daniel then notices more if there's more money. So if you want to say fuck you to Daniel or Zach, I don't know, maybe like out of the three of us, Zach probably has the most people that hate him just because he has the most people that know him. So if you hate Zach too and you're listening to this, donate now. I can't say it's not going to go to everybody because, but you can at least make them feel bad for, okay, well, whenever Tim does it by himself, he gets more money. So definitely throw some donations at us. It makes Daniel happy. Like, seriously, you could donate like 50 cents and he'd lose his shit. He'd like, we don't have these perks for anything where it's like, oh, donate $50 and we'll give you a Twitter shout out. Daniel will shout you out for 25 cents. He and I had arguments plenty of times over coin jar and all that whole thing of just like tipping people 33 cents worth of Bitcoin. He loves that stuff. It makes him feel a lot better. And I mean, just be nice to Daniel in general. Nothing bad is happening, at least yet, but he's looking forward to a pretty big day in his life next week, a little over a week away. And it's cool whenever something big is happening in your life and then other things start to seem like they go well. So if you guys could just boost us to the top of not just crypto podcasts, but just podcasts in general over like the next week and a half, if we could see like a concerted effort to push YMB on everybody, which all you have to do really is just, if you work in an office, or you carpool, or even if you just have a car and you drive in traffic, just get a better sound system. You want it anyway. It's just so you can pump your tunes or whatever. But then just blast episodes of this, preferably ones with three of us on there, so they don't just hear me. Because that'll make Daniel feel bad, definitely, if we get like a huge upsurge. Jesus, I can't even talk. That's the problem with having me do this, is I can talk pretty much. I don't have too many issues if I'm talking slow enough. But then whenever I start to just get fast and ranty, I either just completely forget how to use words, or I mispronounce them, and then like instead of just going over it, then I just mispronounce it 5 more times, because then I'm like, nope, I got it right. I'll remember the next time, and then I just forget it all over again. But then also, I guess before I go for, I will they're not here for me, but I'm always there for them. You can follow Daniel. He runs the @YouMeAndBTC Twitter account, and then you can follow Zach Vol at it's Zach Vol, just with a CK for the Zach, so ZACKVOELL. Follow both of them. Tell them that they're not as good as me. Tell them they should be here for me. And I don't know. Let's get started. We'll go into some other stuff. Okay, yeah, the tweet Daniel sent to me, it's on my phone. I have that charging. I don't really feel like looking at that right now because I pretty much have it from memory. It was just that we need to change around the names for Bitcoin projects so that they related to weed. I mean, we've already kind of done that with Canacoin, Potcoin, Budcoin. I don't even know if that's a thing, but it probably is. There's Roach Coin. I'm almost only for this just because for the fact that I like just completely giving up on having an actual integrity to your product. Like if you combine blockchain and weed in the name of your thing, that's just like the ultimate clickbait for a company name. That is, and I'm sure it will work for some people, but then other people are going to get them just be like, why is this even a thing? Why is this even close to being a thing? Because it is. Those are like weed and pot. They're like the biggest businesses that we could get involved in. They're still ground level enough that like you could do them. Like the average person can't do a startup involved with oil or municipal construction. There's a little bit too much of an overhead. Now, if you're running like a full weed farm, there's definitely an overhead there too. But there also is, and you can see this in any kind of a new market because there aren't as many regulations. Definitely, we're going to see, yeah, weed will become legal, and then people are like, see, it's so much more free now, and it's like, yeah, it is, but that's because there was no like legal market for it before. The market was way freer before. Now I've gone back and forth talking about this because I always try to say that prices will be more expensive, but kind of the fact that like weed's pretty useless. It's not that hard to grow. You can grow it on a pretty industrial scale. And the only reason why it's that expensive anyway is because in most places is because it's illegal. Like the only dangerous thing about it is that it's illegal. And that's what then try like it's not like the people making it don't need to deal with explosives. They're not worried about some of it getting on their hands and them going into convulsions. It's just, yeah, you can get pulled over, and especially if you have it whatever divided into things, you're going to go to jail for trafficking. But I don't know, it's probably going to be inexpensive, and people are going to love that. It's going to be pretty inexpensive at first. I'm sure it's never going to get to where prices would be like in a illegal market, but the prices are definitely be way more than they have to be because of all the taxes thrown on top of that. And then as years go by, they're going to need more cannabis security people and cannabis cultivation experts and cannabis safety groups over the safety, because that's what, in anything else there's always like there's the safety person, and then there's the person that watches the safety person, and there's the person that watches them, and it builds up to this giant bureaucracy, which is probably going to happen. Weed isn't going to be changing anything. Same thing with crypto. I think there's actually a decent amount of comparisons to make between it, but besides them just both being like big money buzzwords. um like getting into the weed business now, if you have the money, if you have the money to throw away, I would say is probably a pretty good idea. I don't normally do like business uh depending on where you are. If it's already an established thing, you probably not, but if you can get in at the ground level as it starts up, then you can be in probably one of the best job markets that's going to be around for the next like 10 to 15 years. I have no problem seeing this as something that explodes very much. I mean, weed doesn't change a lot. We're not going to have this great awakening whenever everybody starts to smoke weed and we go, hey, why don't we stop bombing people? Why don't we stop getting most of our things uh, based off of suffering from people in other countries? Why don't we maybe not enjoy our time in the empire? That like that's not going to happen from weed. Everybody's like, oh, promotes deeper thoughts and rational and connections to other people. And it's not going to. I think that's very much dependent on the person as to how weed's going to affect you. Most of the time, weed is not helpful in situations. It doesn't bring you closer together with other people. Sometimes quite the opposite. But I don't see it as being this, oh, there's going to be this awakening. Your parents are going to take edibles and then they're going to understand. It's mostly just going to be another thing for people to get fucked up with. Um, where I was saying that there was maybe a connection between Bitcoin and weed, or at least comparisons. I would say it's probably going to be where most of Bitcoin and crypto goes as far as a mainstream. Mainstream, it's going to be, yeah, sure, we'll pay our taxes. We'll do our utmost to stop other people from not paying their taxes. They're going to go the way of other payment processors because there's a lot more money there. Same thing with weed. They're going to go the way of, like, I don't know, this is like a pet peeve or something, but it's also things I've heard from other people. I think Carl Sagan said this. I have no problem with weed. Well, I shouldn't say that. I have no issue with people smoking weed. I've had a problem with weed where I smoke it too much and then I do nothing else. Um, so I can see that, but I don't like this whole, there's a normalization of, maybe that's even not even the right word, but there's a problem where we make it, we're going from the laws being like this is akin to heroin to this is as non, like this is as plain as sugar, or as plain as not it's not legitimately like that, but like, because it's still going to be the 21 or whatever age it's going to be, so it is more going to be regulated like booze. But a lot of the people talking about it, we've gone from this is going to make you grow your hair long and kill people to, come on, man, it doesn't do anything, man. Nobody ever gets fucked up from weed, but no one's ever. And I get that. I get the argument that, yeah, it's better than having people on pain pills and booze. But at the same time, there's a lot of just obnoxious people who smoke weed, and people who are, that's mostly just the culture, though. I guess that's true with a lot of things, where the people that feel the need to wear clothing about it are kind of just obnoxious. Same thing with Bitcoin, which I've been that person. I've never worn weed paraphernalia clothing, but I've definitely worn some pretty cringy shirts. I remember this wasn't necessarily Bitcoin. We did wear one of our first, like when we, probably the summer or so when we first started doing the podcast, John, who was one of the original members, Daniel, and I all went to Bitcoin the Beltway conference in Washington, D.C. And fuck, what was I was going someplace, and I promise this isn't because this is kind of, this is not even ironic. This is very applicable that this is happening when I'm talking about weed. But fuck, what was it? I was talking about weed and how we have like an issue where people will just like you push away any problems with it, or at least in the sense of, I was talking about shirts, but that's not even a good point. But that we go from it being terrible to it, oh no, it's fine, it's great for everything, it heals cancer, it heals cramps, it heals blood, and there's no effects ever, nothing ever happens. That's not true. It's, I see it as anything else except where booze isn't necessarily helpful. Again, I have no problem with it. I can see weed or cannabis being helpful if it's used sparingly and then in very high doses, where you can get almost like a gentle psychedelic, or not necessarily like you can freak out, but it's a little bit less alienating than like, quote, like what people normally consider to be like psychedelics. It's a little bit gentler on things on the average, not necessarily. I I've had some pretty bad times on it, and I've seen other people have pretty bad times on it. But I can see it being useful for that. I can see it being useful for something where it's like once a month or so, or maybe even a couple times a month, you just stop, because I think there is something useful to getting out of your whatever you're sober thinking. If you can break that cycle, now it's probably better to do that through something like yoga or meditating, where you're calming yourself down, you're trying to remove the day-to-day problems, you're trying to remove what somebody said a couple hours ago at work, or the guy that cut you off. And weed is an easy way to blast yourself out of sober thinking, so then maybe you can look at things differently, you can get inspired about something, you can find out that you enjoy certain things again. The problem is where we push it just being good for everything and everybody. Then habitual use is where that stuff becomes a problem. Less so than like alcohol or harder drugs, but there's a definite drop off in just spark in people. It's not so much different than the habitual use of benzos. We try to treat it like, oh, this is so much better than Xanax. And again, yes, you're not going to die if you go cold turkey on weed. You might have a headache, you might be irritable, but you're not going to die like you are from benzos or painkillers or something like that. At the same time, you don't need your mind muddied that much. There isn't that, like, I get it for certain people, but on average, if you're not dealing with an issue, if you're not covering something up, you probably shouldn't be smoking. And if you are covering something up, you need to look and judge and decide, well, is it worth having this kind of cloud over my head for the rest of however long I'm going to use this? I'm going to make a really long stretch and try to connect this to Bitcoin, just in the fact that I don't think that them both going mainstream is necessarily a good thing. I like that both of them are doing that. I like that I would, if you ask me, I follow with the whole Ron, like probably my favorite Ron Paul quote besides, and if you're going to read anything from him, just read End the Fed. Leave it at that. You don't have to freak out about anything else. You don't have to read about his whatever, he was published in a journal or something, and it had racist remarks back in the 70s or something, whatever weird things people dredge up and then throw at you as being like, well, he did this. I'm like, everybody else, like, they rape kids. What are you talking like? But regardless of any of that, read End the Fed. But what he did say, I believe it was at a presidential debate, the Republican primary debate. They said something about, well, you're for legalizing all drugs. Are you saying that everybody should do heroin? He's like, well, I don't think, like, he's like, I wouldn't do heroin if it was legal tomorrow. I don't think most of you guys would do heroin if it was legal tomorrow. We don't, like, and his point was, I mean, booze is legal. Booze is legal. Weed is in a lot of places legal. In a lot of other places, it's basically legal. They're like, well, you're not supposed to have that and it's evil, but you're only getting a $50 fine and a little bit of time in jail, maybe holding you. But not everybody does that. I'm surprised when I find people that don't indulge in something. But you will find people like that literally they take almost no chemicals into their body. I'm sure there's other issues. I'm sure there's other things that they do that kind of is a release for them. But you will meet people that are just completely abstinent from things. And just because something's legal doesn't mean that everybody has to do it. Doesn't mean that everybody should be doing it. That's weed becoming legal. Bitcoin was never illegal, so we can't really make that comparison. But I think we can make the comparison with it going mainstream, with there being this kind of push to make Bitcoin friendlier. Where before a lot of the network, not a lot of the network, a lot of the media coverage was, oh, well, this is dangerous. Everybody uses it to buy drugs. Everybody, see, there's a little tie-in. They use it to buy weed. It's used for that. It's used for child porn. It's used for human trafficking in general. It's used for firearms. It's used for assassinations. Where now, it's not that the media is, yeah, it's not really the media. We can't really complain about like that, because it isn't. They're not really making Bitcoin look that much better. They're kind of just being neutral to it now, so at least that's some progress. They're not just out and out attacking it every single day or anytime the price moves. Now they're kind of like, well, people are interested in it, they're looking at it. But a lot of the people that have gotten public, like, a lot of support, and then I mean, I guess this is still partly at fault of the media because it's whoever they decide to cover, but it is the people making the biggest noise are often the people talking about how Bitcoin needs to go mainstream and how we have to have these new implementations to make it more usable, make it more convenient, make it easier for the government to track things, make it easier for the government to tax and make sure that everybody pays their fair share and all this bullshit. And I don't think that's necessarily good. I don't I don't know that everybody is just going to start using Bitcoin the same way that people in our lifetime. I mean, I assume that some kind of cryptocurrency will be the predominant version of money. I think paper still has a couple decades of being the main form. It hasn't. We didn't transition that quickly. I mean, we still have coins. We're not even completely off the coins yet, and we're talking about everybody using Bitcoin in the next 10 years. I don't think we're even close to being done like that. I don't think it's not going to be in the next 2 years. Everybody that ever gets involved with Bitcoin is going to be involved with Bitcoin. It's going to be a very slow draw over. I've seen this graph before. I'm not really sure if I should look it up or not, or even try. But it talks about, right? It shows the different time periods it took for a certain new industry or a certain new invention took to get how like 10 million users or 100 million users. No, I think it'd be 10 million users. And it shows things where like we consider them now to be almost set, like you need this to live, and it took them like 20 years. It took a long time, and that has obviously sped up thanks to stuff like the internet. But I don't see Bitcoin slowing down as far as adoption or just people warming up to the idea for a while. I don't see the dollar just falling away immediately. But I don't know. Maybe you do. Again, get me on Twitter. I'm having a little bit of trouble getting to a like a chat for this show. I'm not the best with sending out these things, knowing exactly where I'm going to have to put them, because every single time I try to use the live link for this show, which if you're listening later, you can always get our most recent episodes at ymb.tc/live. That'll take you to the newest episode. It'll take you to the live episode if we're doing one. It'll take you to the most recent episode on YouTube and kind of give that to you there. So check those out. We have, like I said, this is 260, so you have plenty of content if you need it. Plenty of the older shows are good too, because the only thing that's improved is I say less, not at all. Not that I completely see. I still trip over shit all the time, but it's mostly that I don't say as much, and we kind of make our points a little bit more eloquently. We've been saying a lot of the stuff. A lot of the older episodes, the audio isn't the best. We were using Ripple or Mumble. We were using Mumble before, and then we would record separately, send it all in. Then Daniel would like painstakingly match the audios up, and he would get very pissed off if something was wrong with the audio. Understandably, we had a bunch of episodes where we went, oh shit, I didn't record. And so that was always fun. But yeah, Jesus, I'm talking about how I don't say and then I just jumble over everything. The old episodes are good. They have good content. You have to suffer through a little bit of audio. But again, if you're outside, if you're working while you're doing this, who really cares? The voices are a little bit harder to understand, a little bit not as clear, not as crisp and pristine as you're hearing now. Also, because I just had a shittier microphone. We all did. I'm trying to remember if I'm pretty sure I had like the full mic whenever we first started recording. We first started doing this 5 years ago now. I think 4 or 5 years ago now. I used to record in my parents' basement, which it's actually less comfortable than it sounds, because I didn't live there. That was the only place where it could be quiet, and my mic picked up everything. So I just went down and set up my laptop and my mic on the dryer and just stood in a corner in a dark basement. We didn't do a video show then, so it wasn't that much of a problem. But they're good. We have some good interviews back then. We talked to the guy on a purse, the guy who started or was part of starting purse.io, which I have to give them something of a plug, only because I've shit on them before on here. I had what I thought were some issues at first on there, and then they pretty much got resolved within 6 hours. And I had it pains me to say this, but a very, very enjoyable experience getting things for cheaper. So if you do want to use some of the Bitcoin, if you don't like how it's just sitting there, I would advise just buying some Bitcoin and then like just take whatever you're going to spend on Amazon, put everything into a wish list, set that aside, buy that amount of Bitcoin, and then get some discounted things. But I'm going off on a separate thing, but definitely check out the archives of shows. Um, I don't really have that much else to say about the tweet. I didn't really even get into what the tweet was about. It just listed some different Bitcoin pot names. Uh, but yeah, if you're looking for business stuff, if you can find yourself in a state that is maybe just transitioning into medical or into recreational, if you know somebody or you have a way to get your foot in the door, I'd say it's a better idea than a lot of things right now is get involved with the weed business. And then also, if you can run one, if you can start your own dispensary or whatever grow things, just throw blockchain in the name and you're pretty much just guaranteed to have billions of dollars by the end of the year. You can take that advice from me personally, but make sure you cut me in later. The only other thing I had on here I wanted to hit on before I kind of just went off and just rambled about things was we have another Bitcoin exchange losing their money. And I was looking at stuff before. I have two articles about it, which I'll just look through a couple things. But going through the Bitcoin subreddit, the the one story that I got from the paper was I thought I was clicking on a different link because the title was something about how the total of all Bitcoin lost this year so far has been $1 billion, but it was just a link to this story, and it's the one I'm looking at right now is from The Verge. It's by Shannon Lau, and it's about the Japanese cryptocurrency exchange ZAIF, ZAIF, and they've been robbed of $60 million worth of digital coins. I'm guessing that is not necessarily just Bitcoin. They said they were hacked on September 14th. So this is actually old news. I apologize for that. Real hard cutting week after news here. They were hacked on September 14th during a 2-hour time frame. 3 days later, it uncovered server problems and began to investigate. By September 18th, it was confirmed that it was hacked and notified authorities. Yeah, okay. It says right here the cryptocurrencies stolen included Bitcoin, Monacoin, and Bitcoin Cash, and they were all stolen from an online wallet. Hackers were able to gain access to through the internet. Oh wow, really? An online wallet through the internet. 40 million of the of everything stolen, which is about 4.5 billion yen. I'm just throwing that in there because they throw it on here too. Belonged to the clients of the exchange. $20 million was belonged to a parent company of ZAIF called Tech Bureau. They're saying now, obviously, this is something they always throw in anytime there's a hacking thing. The financial industry, whatever country the currency exchange is involved in, the financial services agency of that country normally goes, oh well, we're gonna have to reconsider, or maybe, or other people at least say they're going to have to reconsider their ruling on what Bitcoin is or how they should follow something. Sorry about that. I just need to clear my throat a little bit. Besides that, they make a mention just in the article about the most recent Bitcoin exchange hack was CoinCheck. I'm sure we covered that back. They say it happened in January. I don't even remember these things by now. I barely pay attention because I just don't do this. I don't keep my money there. You shouldn't. If we have an advice that we have given more times than we've had shows, because it's normally multiple times in one show, and then like three of us use it as our week advice or advice of the week, however you want to put that, is don't keep your coins on an online exchange. Don't leave them there. Don't just trust that person's security is the best, because whenever the security might be better than what you have, but it is better to have. It seems better to me to just not have to worry about it or you have to worry about it, but then it's at least you. It's your issue. And if you want to, you don't have anybody else to blame. And if you have somebody else to blame, you normally won't take the precautions that maybe you would have or that you should have if you don't have anybody to actually, if it is all up to you, you're going to be more likely to keep things safe. And I'm trying to maneuver through this while I'm talking to get to where I can maybe see a chat going. But yeah, it's a lot better to have people. Okay, yeah, there was. Oh Jesus, Daniel's been talking. Hair bullish on shave. Oh, I'm looking through the chats now. We definitely do just need to get rid of problems and just silence them. We should always make sure to never remember things. Soma from what the fuck was that called? What the fuck was that book? I always bring that up when anybody brings up 1984. Brave New World, I think. Whatever Aldous Huxley wrote. I like that a lot better than 1984, just because 1984 didn't have this cool little drug that every single person took and they didn't care. They like drank, but they didn't have this. Like Soma, the idea of it in the book is it's a holiday you can take in your mind. You can take like one pill for it to be like 2 hours, two pills for a half a day, three pills if you want a full day of vacation. It makes all the worries go away. Soma is just weed and Xanax. That's all Soma. Like we very much have that. And yeah, if you want to push problems away, just do that because you will not give a fuck about anything in your life. But that's not good. That's what I'm trying to get away from because it's really easy to just not give a fuck about things. But yep, no, let Bitcoin do whatever. Let Bitcoin, not that I'm changing anything, but if I'm more concerned about Bitcoin, I feel better about it. Same thing with how I'm saying if you keep your money out of an exchange, if you keep it in your own hands, you have to be more coherent about it. You can't just let it go and not have to worry about it. And then if you do lose it, you at least learn something. You should be learning something if you have the money on the exchange, but I also imagine and I would assume that most of the people losing their money on there. Oh, good, Daniel's here. Yay. I don't even want to have these headphones on now.
What's going on?
Fuck you, Daniel. You're ruining my point.
Did I miss anything good?
No, of course not.
Tim's raking in the viewers right now.
Well, this was the first episode I try to just do and focus on something and actually write a few things down. So I actually had things to talk about. It wasn't just me going the whole fucking time.
All right. So what did you have to talk about?
I spent like a half hour talking about Bitcoin and weed and how I'm annoyed at both of them. That was pretty much the whole. What?
Have you been watching the chat? We got freaking Sergiskaveski.
Yeah, I just looked at it because before that I was I kept trying to use the link from an old episode and it kept on just taking me to the last week's, and then I was like, wait, I'll just go down to I'll just go through YouTube and just find that because I was just being stupid. I
didn't. There's no landing page for this yet. There's no /live link. I just frickin' day. It's been a frickin' week to be honest, but you know what? It's only gonna get worse for another week or so. So why?
As soon as you come on here, there's dead air now. I was going before.
Well, I'm still waiting to hear why you hate Bitcoin and weed.
I think both of them, they're going too mainstream. I talked before about how I like feeling like a hipster. Both of them are too mainstream. Everybody's parents are going to be like, I'm eating an edible. I'm a cool kid. No, the biggest comparison I made was just, I think both of them, there's a contingency of people involved with them that think that as soon as somebody touches them, they'll figure something out in their life. Like weed, just make us all more connected and everybody will be happy and we won't bomb people anymore. And then Bitcoin, it's like everybody's just going to want freedom and to be decentralized. I'm like, well, no, it seems like weed is mostly just going to be a replacement for alcohol and Xanax, where people are going to, I don't care, it's fine, I'm just going to go home and smoke. And then a lot of Bitcoin, I was trying to figure out if if the reason why it seems like most of the media attention on Bitcoin is about attempts to make it more palatable, if that was the fault of the like whatever media company it was wanting to push a certain way, or it was just those are the loudest people, it seems like right now in the space are people going, well, we need to make it so we can buy coffee, and we need to make this so you
Yeah.
can pay your taxes, and I was mostly just being a curmudgeon because I don't know how to think critically about things without doing that. Not
I
that this was
think I
critical.
think there's definitely something to be said for any movement where everyone
Yeah.
just
Yeah.
cares way too much. Like you're right, with weed, there are people like, "Oh, it's a miracle cure. It cures cancer." Okay, maybe.
Fixes
Like,
everything.
yeah.
Dude, if we could all just smoke, nobody would ever do anything mean again.
Yeah, so and that goes for any movement. Freaking people get way overhyped, including us. You know, we've done it before, and we're all psyched about who knows what Lightning Network or whatever. But it's not going to solve all of our problems. Eh, Problems are going to be there no matter how much Bitcoin takes over. So
It's wanting to find a solution, like an end all solution, but I don't if it's that or not. Mostly, I just like having Daniel around now so I can get some nicotine in me. I was starting to drag a little bit. They we want something that's going to go, okay, no, we do this and everything just gets fixed, and we don't have issues again, we'll never have corruption again. And I think that besides that being unrealistic, it's also dangerous because whenever you think you go into it being like this is going to fix everything, then you don't even
yeah,
consider trying to teach people the right way, or
you know,
yeah.
I remember telling you years ago. I feel like we probably mentioned this on the show once or twice too. But I remember telling you how at the time I was in college, and I told you that like it's weird. Like if you think about it, like every day you're like, okay, I got to get this assignment done, then I'll be all right. But then like you finish that assignment or write that paper or whatever, and you're like, oh wait, and then you like, yeah, maybe you get some downtime, but like you constantly have things to do or stuff to deal with. And like, oh, now I write this paper and then like I'll get a break. But like, oh wait, then I have to study for finals and then I'll get a break. And then it's like, oh wait, well I got to go to work. And then, lately, like that's definitely true. Like it's dangerous to feel like things will get better. They certainly could, but it's dangerous to assume that. But more lately, it's I've had similar thoughts, probably because 'cause I'm about to get married. I've had similar thoughts on a much larger scale. Like, you're watching a TV show, and there's some, like 60-year-old guy who's depressed because his kid whatever, he's not connected with his kid, whatever. It's like, yeah, even 60-year-olds, like, are gonna have serious issues. They're gonna feel bad. They're gonna they're gonna struggle. They might be alcoholics or whatever. Like it never ends. Like every show you watch, there's like a 30-year-old that gets a divorce or whatever. Like problems, like they're just they're throughout life, and it's
Well,
dangerous to think that everything is gonna get solved.
I'll just bounce off of your terrible show analogy because I don't watch the no, I don't know. I'm just trying to
Whoa,
pick
whoa,
on you
whoa!
now.
That wasn't an analogy. I was being serious. Like that's the thoughts that I have when I'm watching shows. Is like, oh yeah, that reminds me. Like even when I'm older, there's going to be struggles. That wasn't an
Okay,
analogy. I
I'll
was
put it
saying that's
I'm gonna hijack your talk about that because
all right.
I was gonna say like the reason why I would say life is not like part of the problem is looking at life as a show, or I get you weren't saying that, but there's no finales in life. There's no like you were talking about getting married, like in your head. I I'm just burping. I'm sorry. The I get having like a big thing you're looking forward to. Obviously, I don't know it on this scale, but you kind of look at your life as just like, okay, I'm going to go to that. Maybe you're not thinking past it. Maybe you are, but then it happens, and then you're just like, okay, well that's done. No, the credits don't roll. Nothing stops. And in
Right.
general, I tell myself this all the time because I suck at things and I'm trying to get better. And I think one of the worst things to think about whenever you're doing that is a lot of people go, well, I'm just going to master this next thing and then everything's going to be fine. Whether that's in art, whether that's in business, a lot of for the not wanting to do what I did last week, I'll just say that a lot of the people don't appreciate businesses and business owners enough, and that they just go, well, they just set it up and it just runs itself now. Like, do you actually think that these people do? Not like the stress, the whatever, anybody who accomplishes something, you don't just accomplish it and then you just have it. You then have to do that forever. So keep that in mind. I guess don't
Yeah,
let yourself get stuck. Uh, if you need to think of it in the way of, if I accomplish this, I'll have everything. If you need to do that to finish something, that's probably a good idea. But you can't look at it as, "Oh, I'll do this and then I'll
exactly.
I'll just rest. I'll
Yeah,
rest forever.
exactly.
Everything is going to be great
Just
after
like in
this."
college, like I said, you can't assume like, oh, once I finish this paper, then I'll relax. Like yeah, you could relax a little bit, but it's just gonna keep coming. It's never gonna stop, and that's fine. That's life. But you just have to be conscious of that and prepared so that you're not caught off guard when you're like, why won't it stop? Like you can learn to, and it's weird. Uh, like this doesn't sound. It sounds crazy, but it is the same thing that we're saying about Bitcoin and weed and whatever else. It's very dangerous to assume that it will make everything better, that it will, you know, just yeah, that's it. That's all I'm trying to say. If you think that anything, especially especially if it's a drug, then you might be in trouble. But if you think that anything is going to solve all of your problems, a person or an event or whatever, it's just not. Like it's not even that complicated of a idea. It's just not.
Yeah, well, not to get. I'll take this even a little bit further. Just to criticize, like, I don't follow with it that you can like blame one gender or the other as far as what has happened with like the amount of marriages that end prematurely. And I don't know. I guess that's technically prematurely, or whether it's just social change. But I think it is also where, whether it's because of the internet and we just see everybody else having these amazing lives and amazing success or whatever it is, you want to base like, okay, I'll get married and then it'll be great. And then, like you're saying, you still have to work at that, like any other kind of relationship. You still have to work at your job. You still have to work at whatever you want to get good at and whatever you want to. You don't just get good at stuff. You have to consistently be good at something.
So
I'm. Hmm?
what then? What's the action step? If we recognize all this, we're like, yeah, okay, I get it. Problems and issues in life never stops until you die, whatever. What do you what do you do with that knowledge then? Like, does it make you do you work harder? Do you try to ignore problems? Do you like what do you do with that? Or let's stick with Bitcoin. Okay, so we recognize Bitcoin won't solve everything. Like what do we do then? Do we stop doing this show? Do we promote it differently? Do we talk about it more often, less often? Like what's the action step?
420 blaze it, bro. That's about it. No, the actionable stuff you can do, I think, is just trying to understand something, trying to learn more about something, trying to not, because you have to stay not in love with something, but you have to stay enamored with it enough that you do care. And then even whenever you don't care, you at least have the, well, I did care and I will care again. So it's for, that's not really actionable, I guess, for your question. That's just a mindset. Uh, yeah, I would think that it would be work harder and then also just work more consistently. Maybe not necessarily work harder, but have more of a conscious focus on trying to explain to people why Bitcoin is useful, but then also why certain abilities that we have with Bitcoin over state money shouldn't just be glossed over. And I guess trying to figure out a way to make that make, well, I was talking about how it's bad that we're trying to make it more palatable to people, but basically trying to make the sections that we believe in more palatable. Like if we don't like the blockchain just kind of being sold as something completely divorced from Bitcoin or from the decentralized side, then we should try to make the decentralized side more palatable by making that argument, or by making people aware of the benefit of doing that. So that shouldn't be hard with most people. You'll definitely run into some people who are like, but I don't think I should be allowed to have money that isn't being able to be watched by the government. But I think a lot of people, you can make the argument of, hey, do you like the idea of owning your own things, or do you like kind of having a borrowed note that says that you have a certain part in this thing? I think that's all you can do. If someone's
Yeah.
making fun of Bitcoin, maybe do that. You don't have to either. A lot of people that do that, it's not really useful. Be a shining example of Bitcoin.
If if I were to make it more general and talk about action steps in general when you realize that problems always never go away, I think I would just say, and sure, it's almost 7 o'clock my time. I'll go ahead and make this advice of the week. Real simple. I'll just say be reasonable. So, yeah, Bitcoin's not going to solve everything, but we can be reasonable and say, but it's still got a ton of benefits. So we're still going to talk about it and try to get people to use it. But then we can still be reasonable and say, but, there could be better coins out there. We're going to be reasonable and not write off altcoins because yeah, let's be real here. There could be something better than Bitcoin. It seems like our favorite in general so far, but something better almost has to come along eventually. And that just seems like a reasonable thing to look for and expect and talk about. And you could just, the list goes on and on. Just be reasonable. Understand that nothing's perfect, and try to, talk about what's good about Bitcoin, or what's good about weed and what's bad about weed. Because yeah, someone in the chat was saying, I think I would have an ulcer if I didn't have weed. Maybe that's true. So yeah, let's be reasonable. Let's talk about that. Think about that. Someone out there knows how to do science, and they're going to be trying to literally learn if that's true or not. And that's great. That's reasonable. Let's not worship weed. Let's not worship Bitcoin. Let's not worship someone else. But let's be reasonable. Be open and thinking about how things work and what's good and what's bad. And that's about it. That's hopefully, and I know we're not perfect. Sometimes we like to troll, but hopefully on this show we do that quite a bit, where we are just open to whatever, talking about whatever, hanging out, thinking about, is this good or bad? Is this right or wrong? Is this helpful or not helpful? For what kind of people? That's certainly something we try to do on this show, I think.
Yeah, we talked for a while before about free speech and all that stuff, and whether that's even a legitimate thing. And I do believe that, my feeling is that if you're going to have like open discussions, if you're going to have freedom of thought inside of an idea, that's probably better than having a very linear way of thinking. If you're trying to create stuff, obviously, if you're talking about comfort and whether you want to get into an argument or whether you just want to kind of have a conversation that's complimentary, that's different. But if you're talking about trying to make something better, whether that, again, that's a business or that's your body, your life, like same thing with Bitcoin. You're saying try new stuff, figure out, try to bounce new ideas around. But the more differing opinions you can get, a lot of them are going to be bullshit. A lot of them are going to be incorrect. Some of them are going to be true. And you can kind of, with something like weed and Bitcoin, I don't know, I'm trying to make these a little bit too much comparable, but they're both something that you can experiment with pretty safely compared to other things. There's something that you can see, like, okay, if you have an ulcer, if you're dealing with certain kinds of pains or aches or sleeplessness or maybe anxiety or depression, something like that. See if that is more useful to you. See if that is a better standard of a better quality of life over traditional antidepressants or traditional medicines like that. Also with Bitcoin, see, you don't have to use Bitcoin to buy coffee if you don't want to. But I would say at least try it. And again, I'm not talking to anybody that probably hasn't seen Bitcoin, but if you want to get people involved, if you want to kind of show people what's cool about it, I'd say tell them, see if you have any use for it. See if you can use it for transferring money across country lines or across state lines easier than PayPal. See if you can use it for storing value. See if you can use it for something. See if you can optimize your life, I guess is what I'm trying to say. And I guess that would be the advice too, is experiment with different things, see what you like, see what helps you, and try to be as objective as you can and have other people around you to give you some more objective, like outside information.
I think optimize is a great word. It's like, yeah, okay, it's not going to solve everything, but can we optimize certain parts of my life? That's a pretty good word. So, well, I don't know. I'm letting Tim run the show, so I'll let him decide if he wants to wrap up here at 7:01 or what his plan is. It's
I would
mostly
never
his show.
I would never desire to go over the standard wait time. I have the utmost respect for our listeners. But thank you guys for stopping in. I'm sorry I wasn't in the chat earlier. I was kind of stupid, especially if I'm having to talk at the same time. Thank you to Daniel, and this is Daniel Brown. I don't know if we fully
that's me.
Fully not invited. Fuck. This is the problem with me talking, and this is why I had Daniel do this. Wish him the best. Send us some money. Tell him he's going to be a great wedding person. And
yeah, I'm probably going to be out for at least, yeah, I won't be back for until at least 3 weeks from today. So, and hey, I'm late on a show or two. To all of our listeners and to Tim, I'm late. I have a little bit of a backlog. You guys know I've been busy for weeks. I've missed even YMB episodes. I've been missing. So I guess I'll just say thanks for bearing with me. And they're still there. They still exist. They'll still make it out one of these days, but they could easily be set back a few weeks here. So
okay. Thank you guys. Get us next week here Thursday night, 9 p.m. Eastern.
That's if Tim that's if Tim is up for it, because I won't be here.
Yeah, well, of course, yes, come back because Daniel won't be here. Get my show whenever he puts them out, Tim's 2 Cents. Follow me at Baker's Dozen 93. Follow Daniel at Yumi and BTC. And thank you guys for this week. I hope you many blessed stonings in your future and use Bitcoin. Bye.
Love you.